Innovative digital disruptors have pivoted their business offering during the COVID-19 crisis, adapting to the temporary operating constraints of the lockdown. And this way, they have sustained operations and ensured they are open for business while supporting consumers during this global pandemic. But how are they doing it? Let's ask Derek Cikes, who is the CEO of payment fintech Payflex. Thank you very much for coming through, Derek.
Hey, Colin, how are you keeping?
Well, we're keeping well. Just a little bit of, that epiphany where we get to realize if this was actually the manifestation of the test pattern of disruptive technologies. From the pilot studies, are we now seeing a full-scale manifestation of what disruptive technologies were intended for?
So, Colin, I think we chatted just before lockdown started, and I think at that stage everybody was into the doom and gloom and how's the world going to change. But what's always fascinating to me in South Africa is that we've got such great minds and such great entrepreneurs that even something like this, when the entire country locks down, people find new ways of changing or doing their existing business. And there's some really exciting things that we're seeing happening in the market right now. There's guys like a company called Redshift, who have opened up their platform to spaza shops and spaza owners to allow them to take online orders for delivery of essential goods. And that's kept that business going in an environment where they would not otherwise have been able to trade. We've seen guys like this very small boutique liquor store in Parkhurst called Dry Dock Liquor, who are obviously unable to deliver any liquor during this time or sell any liquor during this time, but they've now turned their business on its head, and they started offering online wine seminars, or meet the winemaker, where they actually get a lot of their clientele together and have Zoom calls where they allow the winemaker to take them through what's happened with particular vintages of wine. We've seen other companies like in the hotel or hospitality industry who cannot take any guests at the moment, transform their business into sites where companies who are essential services can host staff and allow their staff to stay there in a, for the want of a better word, a quarantined environment that allows them to continue producing the essential goods without risk of being infected by the local population. And then we've seen lots of stuff happening with the normal kind of retailers who are still offering any number of different goods online that they can't deliver now, they can deliver later. So, nothing's going to stop the average South African, it would seem.
So now how can businesses remain relevant, especially, the unprecedented change when it comes to the new norm of doing business? Does it mean that when they come back into operation, it's going to be business as usual, or they will have to make some, adjustments in as far as operations and risks are concerned?
So I think slowly but surely people in South Africa have come to realize that business as usual is going to be business unusual into the future, to kind of quote a term that's been used many times before. But what I think we're going to see more and more of into the future is that those merchants or retailers who listen to their customer base, take cognizance of what's happening in the moment, are going to be the ones that are successful and the ones that are able to see the way into the future. We're certainly not going to end up in a situation in 2 days' time where lockdown is miraculously over and we go back to normal life. I think we've already seen one of your preceding articles saying SA Express going into liquidation. It's likely that SAA may go a similar route. There's, Edcon have announced that they've got particular troubles. So the entire landscape is changing. And the smaller, more nimble businesses are the ones that are going to be able to adapt to the new world quicker. And I think that's going to be the new normal into the future.
Well, Derek, we were having a conversation earlier with Manzini about the lockdown frustration of certain businesses that think they actually deserve to be active during stage or level 4. So now let me just pick your mind or your brains on this one, in as far as, lack of interaction with members of the community when you are in the food space, where, for example, there can be food delivery services, so you don't have to go to the store, but you may order and food will be brought to you. So the same scenario in as far as drive-through is concerned. Do you think that they are being excluded, but they deserve to actually be operational after the lockdown when it ends this Friday? I'm asking this in a sense that when you go to the drive-through process, you order your food verbally, you don't have to touch anything or press anything. And when you go to pay, you just tap, as it's the new norm. And remember, we had a discussion about the differences between swiping and tapping. And then thirdly, when you collect your food at the window, you don't have to touch anybody. You just take your food into the car, from the window into the car, without interacting with anybody. What do you think about that?
Sure, Colin, you do like to ask some really tricky questions. I think that the priority right now is to start to get the economy going again. We've heard a lot about this 500 billion rand stimulus package that the government wants to implement. And I think to get that going, the government has got to get a couple of things happening. One, they've got to start getting tax revenue back into the system. We've got to get people starting to spend money in particular spaces. But at the same time, that's got to be balanced off against making sure that we don't open up too much too fast and allow this flattening of the curve to become inverted again, and we end up with a larger problem. So I think it's a very careful balancing act. I think we're going to get a lot of things wrong along the way as we go. But one thing that I have noticed as we go along is that government and the various entities that are part of this are learning very quickly and making adjustments quickly. So do I think drive-through should be allowed to continue because they can control the environment quite nicely to try and prevent the spread? Personally, I think that would be nice. I think it would take a little bit of stress out of the system in my household because, we've all done the cooking and we've all done the cleaning many times. It would be nice to be able to go and get some takeaway. But I don't think I'm personally qualified to determine whether or not that's going to be the best solution at the time. But I do think we need to find ways to get more and more industry open.
All right, thank you very much for making time to speak to us. I guess this discussion will have to continue from time to time, as you are saying that we're not going to have business as usual, but business unusual.
Absolutely, and thank you for your time.
Derek Cikes is a commercial director at Payflex, and speaking to us about how the companies can brace themselves for stage or level 4 of their lockdown.